All right, greetings. This is Intro to Logic, weeks 12 through 13 for our schedule at Hallstrom. It's lessons 30 through 32. This is preparing for test number 6. If I have it, I think I have that right. And so we a few of our students have been ill, and so I'm doing this to walk them through Enthymemes. This is on the final. What follows in this is week 12 and 13. Week 14 is informal fallacies, which will not be on the final, and there will not be a test on that part. We ended up needing a little bit of a buffer because of the number of students who ended up being ill. So this is enthymemes and hypothetical syllogisms. So let's dig in. We're going to do all this here on the screen with you, and let's begin with an introduction, definitions. An enthymeme is an argument in which a statement is unstated and assumed. Specifically, it's a syllogism with one assumed statement. So you'll have either two premises or you'll have one premise and the conclusion. And the key is that because we always deal with two premises and a conclusion with three terms, it is possible if you have two of those, either two premises or have a premise and the conclusion, you can determine what the other premise or what the conclusion is based on that. And so this simply is using the skills that we've learned already in order to accomplish this. So let me let's work through this, and let's talk through it and then excuse me. All right, here we go. Here, excuse me. Haven't stopped coughing. So if the conclusion is supplied in the argument, then here's the process, and that is first locate the conclusion and translate accordingly. This gives you your major and your minor terms, and then you'll get your middle term from your premise that you have. Second, consider the remaining statement and translate accordingly. It will be either your major or your minor premise, and always, like we have been doing with syllogisms, you start with the conclusion to determine that. Right? It will give you also your middle term, which then will allow you to create your missing statement. Third, create the missing statement. The appropriate statement should create a valid syllogism. This is the real challenge, is that you, in your construction of the argument, because one of the statements is not provided, you should be able to put it in a form that makes this syllogism valid. Okay? And save yourself the work, because if it was invalid, you'd have to do a counter example anyway. So now, so the created statement we put in parentheses just to mark it off and to show that that is the statement. So if the conclusion is not supplied, here's the process. Determine which statement is the major premise and which is the minor premise. Keep in mind that after you construct your argument, you may need to rearrange the statements because of how you do the conclusion and getting a valid form. So you may have to, what you thought originally was the major premise may be the minor premise, and that will simply depend on your conclusion that you draw. Okay, it gives you all the terms: major, middle, and minor. Major, minor, middle. Write your conclusion accordingly and make sure to use a valid form. That's the key. Use a valid form. Right? How do we find a valid form? You know your 5 rules, right? That the middle term must be distributed. That if distributed in the conclusion, that it must be distributed in its premise, its appropriate premise. That you can't have two negative statements and an affirmative conclusion. You can't have a negative statement and an affirmative conclusion. And why am I blanking on number 5? You can't have what is it? You can't have two affirmative premises and a negative conclusion. So you need to keep your rules in mind and just check for that, and to make sure that you are creating a valid form, right? So pay attention to your distribution, and let's do a few of these. So we have, and these first few are all from the scriptures. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Okay, remember that here we have 4 is a word of explanation, right? And so this cannot be the conclusion, because this is explaining this, and so then we're going to assume in this case this is our conclusion. Blessed are the meek. Now we need to think about the translation of this phrase, because who appropriately is the subject of this, and when we think about again about distribution, and that is that in this case the best way now is every blessed person meek, or is every meek person blessed? And I believe that you appropriately would make the argument that Jesus was saying that all the meek people are blessed people. So we would translate this, and this is our conclusion, right? Therefore, all the meek are the blessed. Okay? Or you could write it, all the meek are blessed people. Let's do that one. That sounds a little better. So let me erase. Oops. Let me erase this. Let's rewrite it. All the meek are blessed people. All right. Now let's do our labeling like we normally do, right? The meek is S, which is the minor term. Blessed people is P, because it's the predicate, and it is the major term. So now when we look at they will inherit the earth, they, let me change my colors here. Let me go, whoops. Let me change my colors. Okay, they refers to the meek, right? So this is the meek will inherit the earth. So here we go. The meek is the minor term. And so who is it? All the meek people. So all the meek will be earth inheritors. Okay? Here we go. The meek is S, which makes earth inheritors M, right? Our middle term. Okay, so now we can construct. Now we know this. Okay, and this is here's my best tip: is we know that when it comes, if we're going to do all A statements, that A1 is the only valid form. Okay, so AA1. Okay, whoops, sorry. Earth inheritors will need to be AA1. Remember to do your arm actions, right? Is earth inheritors will have to be in the first position. So let's do this. Let's change colors again. Let's do green. All earth inheritors are, now we go P, right? Are blessed people. Right? Let's finish our labeling just so we can see how it goes. P This is M, right? Because it's the middle term. All right, let's check it by our rules. So we know this is A. So A. This is 1. The figure is 1. Okay, we have no negative statements, so we don't have to worry about our last 3 rules. Okay, let's talk about distribution. The middle term must be distributed in at least one statement. It is here, distributed here. The meek is distributed here, and the meek is distributed here, right? In the conclusion. So we have so the middle term is distributed, and we look at this and see that when distributed in the conclusion, it must be distributed in its premise, which it is. This is valid, right? This is a valid form. And so now we have successfully done this first one, right? Let's do the next one. Okay? You are a teacher who has come from God, for no one who could perform miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him. All right, here we go again. For is explanation, right? And so the conclusion, assuming this is the conclusion, is you are a teacher who has come from God. And so therefore, all you are a teacher from God. All right? Here we go. Okay. So this is our conclusion. All you, that's right? That's minor term, major term, P. Okay. So we look now at the second statement. No one could perform the miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him. Okay? Let's see. Let's think about this. So this is a conditional statement. If God were not with him. And so no one could perform the miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him. Okay? Now we're gonna assume that God with him and a teacher from God. Or you have to ask yourself, is that the same thing? Now we have you, all you, and so this is probably going to be our minor premise because you is our minor term. So let's stick with A. All you, okay? And what are they saying? No one could perform the miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him. All you are a person who God is with. All you are a person who God is with. Okay? There we go. So you is S, that makes person, right? So let's create another A statement, right? And we're going to do A1. So a person, all people whom God is with are teachers from God. Okay, here we go. This is M, people whom God is with. M, teacher from God. This is P, right? Okay, so I have my correct A1, which means then when we think about distribution, distributed, I have no negative statements. I don't have to worry about my last 3 rules. So here we go. In at least one statement, the middle term must be distributed. Got it. If distributed in the conclusion, it must be distributed in, okay? Now, when you translate, keep in mind that you'll have to do your best and come up with the best translation and get the heart of what's being said. All right, let's try another one. Okay, anyone who claims to forgive sins is claiming to be God, and Jesus claimed to forgive sins. Now, here we go. This is and, right? Conjunction. And so neither one of these can be the conclusion, right? So we have to, and keep in mind, you may have to rearrange this depending on what you determine. So don't get overly concerned about this. Translate your statements first, and then let's worry about the order of the statements. All right? Okay. Anyone who claims to forgive sins is claiming to be God. So let's see if we can do all. All sin forgiving claimers are God claimers. How about that? Is that simple enough? All sin-forgiving claimers are God claimers. Jesus claimed to forgive sins. Now, Jesus is singular, but it's referring to all of them. So all Jesus is a sin-forgiving claimer. Now, here's where this matters, and you got to pay attention. Okay, because if this is the case, sin-forgiving claimers becomes our middle term, right? And actually, we're hoping that this is set up to be in good position, right? Because this is set up to be A1. So now let's write a conclusion that helps us. All, and here's our, this will be S, right? It'll be, and so all Jesus is a God claimer, right? So here we go. S, this is P, up here, this is P, right? Okay, I have AAA1. And that really, I think this is the best thing to remember, that if you can do AAA1, that's always, you're going to know that's always going to be valid, right? Let's check it. Distribution with A statements is always in that first position, right? So here we go. Middle term must be distributed. If distributed in the conclusion, must be distributed here. No negative statements. There we go. It's valid. All right? So essentially, think about this. You are being given all three terms, no matter whether you are given the conclusion in one statement or both premises, and either way, you get all of them. The key is to figure out, and the key in this one was this conjunction up here, right? Because we've learned to identify the conclusion. We know whether one of these statements is the conclusion or not. Let's do another one. Enoch was not found because God had translated him. Okay, because explanatory. And so we know that this is explaining. This is an explanation of Enoch was not found. So let's assume, and again, you always have to be careful because you may have to change your mind. But let's at least train it. Let's do Enoch. All Enoch was a not found person. Okay? It sounds funny, but a lot of stuff we've been doing here, right? Okay, Enoch is our minor term. Not found person is our major term. So, God had translated him. Okay? Here we go. All God, Now here's the thing. God had translated him, but him is Enoch, right? And so Enoch is here. So here we go. Let's go. All, and again, if we're going to do AAA1, Enoch is going to need to go in this first position, right? All Enoch was a God translated person, right? You do person, man would work, right? So now, here we go. Enoch is S. God translated person is our middle term. We're doing AA1, so we know that the middle term has to go at this position, right? In order to be valid, because it has to be distributed, right? So you got to remember to think about your distribution. All God translated people, you could do persons, are what? Not found people. You could do persons. Okay? And here we go. Here's P. Here's our middle term. Again, distribution is that first one right there. No negative statements. You don't have to worry about that. AAA1. Okay? Middle term is distributed. When distributed in the conclusion is distributed in its premise. There we go. So, again, we are given all the terms, and we just need to arrange them correctly. And so there is. Let's do this. I want to go on, and we need to talk about hypothetical syllogisms. Whoops. Let's do hypothetical syllogisms. Here we go. Start from the start. Oh, I did that wrong. Sorry. Apologize for that. Hit the wrong button. Here we go. From the current slide. Here we go. All right. Hypothetical syllogisms. This is the other thing we need to learn. And that actually, these are actually fairly easy. You just have to learn. You have to learn how they operate. Okay. Hypothetical syllogism, a definition, is a statement that affirms an outcome based on a condition. So here's the form. If P, then Q. And it is done by, this horseshoe means conditional here, right? So this, you would say this, if P, then Q. All right? Here we go. And then when we are, whoops. A pure hypothetical syllogism is an argument that uses only hypothetical statements. Okay? So the form of that is if then. Again, we're using the horseshoe. Example from additional exercises. If you are predestined, then you are called. And if you are called, then you are justified. Thus, if you are predestined, then you are justified. We would translate this and write this as if P. Okay, in this case, if you are predestined, that would be P, then Q, you are called. And if you are called, this is Q, right? If Q, and the then is always this horseshoe, right? Then, horseshoe, then you are justified. Thus, if you are predestined, and that's P from up here, up above, right? P, if you are predestined, then you are justified, R. So you write if P, then Q, if P, then Q, if Q, then R, and then the last is if P, then R. Basically, this is similar to saying if P equals Q and Q equals R, then R equals, then P equals R. Okay? Let me clean that up a little here. Clean this bottom one up here. Let me write that again. Sorry about that. So if P equals Q, right, and Q equals R, then P equals R. Then what it's saying is that, look, if you have Q in common, then P and R are in common. But this is hypotheticals, but it's thinking in that way somewhat mathematically, okay? So let's keep going. Let's look at this. There's mixed hypothetical syllogism, an argument that uses both hypothetical and categorical statements. So there are different forms. The first one is modus ponens, is how you say that. An example from the additional exercises. Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. John loves Jesus, therefore John keeps his commandments. And we would write this, the form would be if P then Q. So if you love me, this is P, you will keep my commandments, that's Q, right? John loves Jesus, that's P, therefore John keeps his commandments, and that is Q. So you write it as if P, then Q, P is true, therefore Q is true. So we'd say if you love me, you will keep my commandments. John loves Jesus, therefore John keeps his commandments. Okay? I'm sorry, let me back up. This is modus ponens, right? All right. Modus tollens. This is an example from the additional exercises. If you trust in Christ, then you are saved. So this is if you trust in Christ, then you are saved. Judas was, and here's the key, was not saved. So this is not Q. This right here is called a tilde. And that shows negation. Okay, not true. Judas was not saved, so not Q. Therefore, he must not have trusted in Christ. So not P. Okay, so we'd write this as if P, then Q. If you trust in Christ, then you are saved. Judas was not saved, therefore he must not have trusted in Christ. Now, this must always be, it's always, modus tollens and always negative, and it must always be with the consequent. The first one on the left side of the horseshoe is the antecedent, like anterior, antecedent, and then after that is the consequent. Okay? Let's move along. Let's do, now there's two fallacies that go with this. And this is maybe where you get potentially a little tripped up, but it matters, right? So here's the bonus definition. A non sequitur means it does not follow or is an invalid argument. Affirming the consequent. Example from additional exercises. If there is no vision, okay, if there is no vision, P, then, so horseshoe, Q, right? Then the people will perish. We must have no vision, right? Not P, for, or in this case, therefore, we are a perishing people, right? We are perishing. Q. We would write this, okay? If P, then Q. Q is true, and notice this is the consequent, is affirming the consequent, saying that the consequent is true, therefore that P must be true. This does not work. This is a fallacy. It does not work at all. If you're going to affirm something, it must always be the antecedent. Okay? This is a fallacy, affirming the consequent. Now, denying the antecedent is also a fallacy. If anyone is sick, this is P, then horseshoe, he should pray, Q. Joseph is not sick, so not P, is not sick, right? Not sick. So, therefore, Joseph does not need to pray. That's when you can hear the fallacy in, right? So, not Q, right? Here we go. This is a fallacy because we are denying the antecedent. If P, then Q, not P, therefore not Q. Right? Is the only time you should pray when you're sick? Or are there other times you should pray? Okay, that's why this is a fallacy. Is that certainly you should pray when you're sick, right? But if you only pray when you're sick, then you are missing out on all the other opportunities and times that we're called to pray. So let's look at these. So identify from the mixed hypotheticals, okay, and we're going to identify modus ponens, modus tollens, affirming the consequent or denying the antecedent. If you listen to loud music too much, okay, let's do this. P, then you will lose your hearing. Q, my grandfather is losing his hearing. Q, he must have listened to too much loud, to loud music too much. Sorry about that. So P. Okay, what is this? I'll give you a second to think about it. It is, okay, it's affirming the consequent, isn't it? And so this would be, if P, then Q, it's affirming Q and the consequent, therefore P. This is the fallacy of affirming the consequent. Okay, let's do another one. If it snows more than a foot, that's P, then the principal will cancel school. Q, it will snow 2 feet. If it snows more than a foot, this is more than a foot. It's affirming P, right? More than a foot. Therefore, the principal will cancel school. So let's write it out. If P, then Q. It's affirming P, therefore Q. This is modus ponens, right? Modus ponens. Here we go. Let's do another one. If you drink too much, if P, then Q, you will get drunk. Freddie is drunk. So I guess he drank too much. P, right? So let's write it out. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. It's affirming the consequent, and this is a fallacy. Is the only way that Freddie gets drunk is by drinking too much? Could he have taken prescription medications or done something else that made him appear intoxicated? These days with medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, he could. There's lots of things that can cause intoxication. It's not necessarily just drinking alcohol, and that's why this is a fallacy. Now, he could be drunk from drinking too much, but it could be another cause that he simply appears to be drunk. All right. If the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, that's P, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram, Q, right? A trapezoid is not a parallelogram, okay? This is not Q. Therefore, the diagonals of a trapezoid do not bisect each other, okay? That's not P. So let's write it out. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. This works, right? Denying the consequent, or modus tollens. All right? That one works. Let's do another one, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay? If you send money to our church, P, then, horseshoe, God will bless you, Q. James did not send money, not P, to our church. Consequently, James will not be blessed. Let's write it out. If P, then Q. He's saying not P, therefore not Q. Right? This is a fallacy because it is denying the antecedent. Okay? It's a fallacy because is the only way that God blesses people is by giving money? No. Can he bless people who give money? Yes. But that's not the only way in which God blesses us. Thank goodness, right? Because very few of us are rich. And it's important for us to understand why this is a fallacy, and then to work it out and write out each of these and know why it is a fallacy. All right, let me wrap it up there, and I'll ask you to do this. If you have a question, you can email me, right? Mitch at mitchss.com. Okay. Email me if you have another question. If you are part of one of my classes, then you have my cell phone number, and you can certainly text me or call me. I'd be happy to do it that way. But hopefully this at least gets you started, and we can discuss more if you need more help with this. So I hope this is enough to at least get you rolling and understanding this. Obviously, use your book, do your exercises. Please try to work through your exercises before you ask for my help. But please don't be afraid to ask for my help. And I hope I won't have to hear from you because you understand. If you don't understand, then I'm going to hear from you because I'm happy to help you. All right? Thank you. Have a great day. I hope you're feeling better, and that this helps you along the way. All right? Talk to you later.